everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. We are going to be talking to White Lightning Tim Horner on this episode, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing about his early career in professional wrestling. And in just a moment, we're going to bring them on. But right now, I want to let everyone know, if you have not subscribed to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out, you're watching on YouTube, to please subscribe and give us a thumbs up and hit that notification bell, and it'll tell you when we're going to download and upload or whatever you do with those, and bring them to the deal. Right now, let's bring in, first we're going to bring in Jack Lord. Welcome. And we'll bring in White Lightning Tim Horner. Welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.
Hey guys, great to be here.
Well, thank you so much for coming back and being a part of our program. One thing I want to there's questions are coming in. If you have a question for Tim Horner, go ahead and send them in, and stay with us because we'll answer those questions. But first, I think Jack's got a question he wants to start with, and then after that we'll answer some of your questions.
All right, we touched on a little bit last night, Tim, of you being trained by Rick Connors. How recap again, how that went about, how you got in touch with Rick, how you got started.
Well, I talked about it last night. I was a junior in high school and was attending matches in my hometown. And my junior year in high school, I was maybe $165, and that was fully dressed. But was a wrestling fan, and we used to after the baseball games sneak in or try to look when we get down on all fours and try to look through the windows to see. And Mac McMurray at that time ran me off with a dog when I was a kid, and he used to have a dog that the Stomper had. And so anyway, we were at the matches, and I got kind of excited and thought Robert Fuller needed a little help. He was wrestling the Mongolian Stomper, managed by Gorgeous George at the time, Junior. And the police caught me as I had my leg up on the ring apron to get in. So pulled me back and took a tongue lashing from Louis Tillett, who was the booker at the time, and gave me a pretty good cussing out and tried to throw me out, but they wouldn't let him. They said, "I'll take care of it." The officer did, who was actually Jack Fleeman, ended up being in my wedding. But he came after the matches and apologized to me for what he said and how he said it, because I know he cussed me in 2 or 3 different languages. But anyway, he asked me what I did. I was, I was a junior in high school and was playing football and wrestling and run track. And he told me I had a lot of spunk for a little fella. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, you like wrestling? I said, yeah, I do. I really do. And I said, I apologize. I kept saying, I'm sorry. Don't call my parents. They won't let me come back. And so anyway, he said, here's my card. He said, if you get out of school and don't know what you're going to do and you still want to pursue it, call me and I'll give you a tryout. So I carried that card in my pocket, in my wallet, for 2.5 years. And then I called him, and he put me in touch with Rick Connors, who was living in Knoxville. And that's how I got in the business. I took a beating. As it was hard then to get in the business. They didn't want you. It was like mafia, and I mean, he'd run us till our tongues were dragging. We're tripping over him, and then put us in there with more experienced guys who were getting to retaliate for what they went through when they were getting. So it was an experience. But you know what? Looking back, I wouldn't trade it for nothing. It made me a tough son of a gun.
Yeah.
So that's the story. And Rick is still in Knoxville. I haven't seen him in probably. I saw him once last year, but he's still around.
How old is Rick Connors at this point?
I think his Social Security number is 6. No, I think he's probably early 70s, maybe.
Man, I thought he was older than that when I was growing up watching him. at that time. So,
He used to work out with Carson Newman College wrestlers all the time. He used to stretch a whiz out of them. He just enjoyed doing it. It was good. He's a good guy.
now he trained Tony Anthony as well, right?
He did, and Doug Furness. Gosh, I was trying to remember who all he did train. Jeff Anderson, Ron Sexton.
A lot of good guys.
A lot of guys that come out of there. Yeah.
What I want to ask you, okay, when you got through being trained on March 15th, 1980, you would end up. Now I don't know if this was your first time or not, but you would end up at WBIR Studios in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you would wrestle against Dutch Mantell. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he took advantage of me. I've addressed it already.
So you've already told Dutch that he took advantage of you.
Yeah, he knew it. We had a conversation. It was my first television match.
Okay.
I was green I was greenhorn, and I was cannon fodder, and he used me like I was cannon fodder. So yeah, we've talked about it and laughed about it at the same time.
So you have forgave Dutch Mantell for this? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he's gotten the receipt already. Yeah,
I've got you. I understand. All right, well, we'll have to talk about that receipt at some point in the future. You also went against about the same time. It might have been a month later, in April 19th, 1980. You went against the Manchurians. Now, was that with Great Mephisto?
Yeah, it was.
And you teamed with Coco Ware.
Coco Ware.
Now, was the Manchurians hard on you, or were they easier on you?
I didn't. After Dutch, I thought that's the way it's supposed to be. They were trying to get over, and they were experienced, and it was learning on the job.
Now, was Ron Fuller? Was he the one that owned it at the time, or did Georgia Championship Wrestling, was they running it at the time?
I think it was Georgia at the time.
Okay, because I know we were there at some point. I remember Dad he would go there and take care of Jim Barnett's, part of that. So I couldn't remember when I was writing this down, because you also went against Jerry Novak, which wrestled as Ivan the Terrible. I don't really know how you say this other word. Is that rap? What? How do you say his name? You remember?
I don't.
Rapskuskas or something like that.
Yeah, actually, I think Dutch. I'm pretty sure Dutch was my first, but real close to that. I went down and worked for Nick Doulis.
Oh, okay.
And Rick Connors told him my name was Cowboy Tim Riley. I think it was after that. Anyway, so we're standing I'm waiting to go in the studio. You know how one side guys went on one side and guys on another. And Tojo Yamamoto was standing on the other side yelling, Riley. And I was just standing, I didn't know who Riley was, and he kept yelling, Riley. And I finally looked, he said, "You Riley?" And I said, "Oh yeah. He said, "I'd chop you, go down." I said, "Okay, no problem." So yeah, that was an experience there too. So,
Tojo, at least you didn't get hit by his wooden shoes. So I guess that was a good thing.
A good thing. He didn't need the shoes, I guess.
Well, let me before Jack asks some questions here, let's catch up on some people who have come in. I want to ask Chris Vick wanted me to ask you this question. He said, "What are your top 5 referees of all time you have worked with?" And the reason he asked that, I think Chris Vick, he's a referee, right, Jack?
Yeah, he is.
All right.
Allegedly.
Top 5. I'm gonna name 5, but I don't know in what order.
Okay.
There were some good ones out there. Nick Patrick, Mark Curtis, Tommy Young, your dad, Scrappy, McGowan. I mean, gosh, there's just so many.
Tommy Weathers.
Carl Fergie, Tommy Weathers. Yeah. I mean, you go way back, 30 years, there's a lot of referees out there,
Yeah.
and people don't understand. That third guy makes your match. And a lot of people don't understand that and don't give the referees credit, but they work just as hard as the guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. We want to say hello to Charles Alford. Thank you so much for being part of the show tonight. Gene Corey, good evening, and thank you so much. David Lawson, evening, and thank you so much for watching. And here is Michael Sam Houston.
Hey.
He said, "Hey, Tim, looks like you've gained some weight."
Well, I stopped growing up, started growing out.
Michael Sam Houston, great professional wrestler, one of the best in professional wrestling. Thank you so much for coming on here and saying something to Tim Horner. Terry Lustagraph, good evening, Brent, Jack, and Tim. Good evening to you. And thank you so much for you coming in as well. Here is, David Lawson wants to know, Tim, what was your best and worst territory to work for?
Best and worst. I would say the one I had the most fun with was definitely Continental. Just the travel and it was just, how could you not like being on the beach about every day and going to the gym and going to the beach and then going to the town? It was great. Mid-South was where I learned a lot early on. I enjoyed that. New York was just a lot of travel when I was there. The first time, we worked 12 days, off 3, worked 5, off 3, and worked 12 again.
Wow.
And, it was airplane every day somewhere.
Yeah.
It was hard, but, I was younger then. So, it was a little easier.
Are you saying that you would not want to do that again today?
I'm telling you, I wouldn't do it today.
Michael,
I went from getting out of car driving 3,000 miles to flying every day. I don't know which is the worst.
At least you had some good trips, and you got to make trips with people who. That's when you learn the wrestling business, when you see on them trips
in the car. Absolutely.
Michael Sam Houston said, "What did you think about Mid-South working for Watts and Grizzly Smith?"
Well, as I already said, that I learned more there than I did anywhere. I learned a lot from Grizzly Smith. He'd been in the business a while and was the I guess it was that back then he was the I guess I forget what the name they had for him, but it was like an agent. He ran the towns and gave the finishes and stuff. But a lot of do's and don'ts then, and but I enjoyed that territory. Just a lot of miles. Golly.
Did you ever get fined by Grizzly Smith?
Yes. But he did it because Bill asked him to. We were in Shreveport and we had a double shot, Tulsa and or Oak City first and then Tulsa. And I had driven that thing once and I swore I'd never do it again because we went from Houston to Little Rock to Oak City to Tulsa back to New Orleans. And that was, heck, I hadn't been that many places on vacation. But so I decided to fly, but my alarm clock or the hotel didn't get me up. So I get there about 1:30, you got to be there an hour before. And of course, Oak City, Bill's going to be there. So I came in about 1:30 before the 2:00 show. I was still there for my match, but I was late. And he looked at Grizz. He said, "Timmy been late much?" And Grizz said, "No, sir." He said, he's always on time. And I said, they didn't get me a wake up call. And he said, "Well, I'm going to fine you $50. He said, "Grizz, if he brings you a receipt for an alarm clock, I'll give him his $50 back." I had to go out and buy an alarm clock, and I carried that thing in my bag for years. It didn't quit working, and I still carried it just as a reminder.
Dad got fined by Bill Watts for being 22 cents wrong on his on his report one time. He's got fined $50 for being 22 cents. And that's just ridiculous. Okay, Jack, if you go ahead and we'll get with these other people's questions in just a moment.
All right. You would make your way to Atlanta to wrestle for Georgia Championship Wrestling and Southeastern Chip Wrestling a few times. Did Rick Connors get you booked, or how did you get in with those places?
Rick got me in there first, and they just kind of started calling after we'd been down there several times. But yeah, he got our foot in the door.
Yeah, I think at that time, Dad was the one that was booking all that. He would get in touch with Rick Connors or Mike Jackson or one of those guys.
That was it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. At Georgia Championship Wrestling TV taping for 09/27/80. Let me see here. Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts defeated Jerry Roberts and Tim Horner. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I got knocked out.
Wow.
Michael Hayes, I think it was Michael or Buddy one, that shot me in for a backdrop, and I landed into an inverted pile driver. Terry caught me and dropped me on my head.
Whoa.
I don't remember going back to Knoxville.
Wow. Wow.
I do remember that. That was, it was he did that inverted tombstone. He caught me off a backdrop in the air and just drove me right in. I remember that.
Yeah, that's something you probably wouldn't forget.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Again, with GCW TV taping, February 7th, 81, Kevin Sullivan defeated Tim Horner. You remember working with Kevin?
I remember working with Kevin. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Southeastern. Go ahead.
No, I worked with him several times.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear. A lot of guys. I hear that were afraid to work Kevin or whatever. Now, I worked with Kevin a few times, and I loved it. I think the world of Kevin. But anyway, Southeastern Championship Wrestling, Birmingham, February 9th, 81. Jerry Stubbs versus Tim Horner, winner unknown. Do you have any recollection of that? Probably your first time with.
In 81?
I'd say in with Southeastern. Yeah.
I don't know that I remember that one in Birmingham. I remember working with him in Loudon as the Matador.
Okay, yeah.
Back when it was, in Knoxville or after Knoxville. I'm, not sure where that was, but I do remember the Matador though.
All right, let's get some more people who want to ask some questions. So we'll get those. Larry Brock says, "Hello, Tim."
Hello, Larry Brock.
Larry Brock. I always say he had more heat than anybody in the wrestling.
But he didn't mind getting it.
No. Stephanie Wood. Hello, how you doing, Stephanie? You probably know Tim Horner as well. She was in Dothan, Alabama. Every Saturday, she would sell tickets and help out at the Farm Center and help us at the Civic Center for years. Lane Crooks. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Tim.
I said that's when the floor was dirt.
Yes, that was. It was dirt. Hello, Tim. Shreveport, Louisiana here. Lane Crooks.
Oh, wow. Hey. Good to see.
Terry Lestegraff, you forgot Mac Murray. I thought did we not talk about him? I'm not for sure.
Mac, yeah.
He was good.
Mac and I did a BC powder commercial together.
Oh, he meant to ask me, or he messaged me and wanted me to ask you about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Mac, of course, he lives not far from me here, and he lives over in Cott County. But he had got hooked up with John Boy and Billy out of Charlotte, and they were doing the BC powder stuff. And and Mac said something or wrote into him or something, and I was in the area, and they called us and we met, and they just sat there and listened. They said, "Y'all just have a conversation." I told Mac, I said, "They're just gonna make fun of us talking, because we just had a conversation." They said, "Well, we'll be in touch," and I said, "Well, that was a waste of time." And then they came back and said, "We want to have another conversation." Well, we didn't have the conversation. Mac and I had a conversation, and then it ended up, we went to Nashville and was there all day, 8 hours for a 30-second spot. And it
Wow.
was, it was very interesting. I mean, they treated us like we were somebody, had us a camper and, go in there and they fed us and they did all this. And, but yeah, that was amazing to do that. And it turned out pretty good. We got a lot of airplay.
Let's see here. Let's make sure we get everybody in. Lane Crooks wants to know, what was Ole like working with and for?
I loved Ole. You just had to know how to take him.
Yes, this is true.
He was, well, he was very good to me. If he didn't like you, he'd tell you he didn't like you. You always knew where you stood. But people who I've made a few road trips with him, and going through the Wendy's in Virginia in Richmond, and him going through the drive-through and was doing the Zamfir Master of the Pan Flute, playing it on his fingers. I mean, nobody saw that side of Ole,
Yeah, Ole wasn't as bad as everybody thinks. He tried to make everybody believe that he was this mean person, and and he was mean. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he could be mean, but he was never mean to me.
He was good to me. He was booking when Jake and him there when I got my first, I guess, big break of the business with the Road Warrior in '84. So.
Chris Vick wants to know, will you ever write a book on your career?
I have pondered that many times, and I have a lot of things written down, and I may do that. And we mentioned last night, I wish we'd have had phones back then for pictures, but then we would all be in jail if we had cell phones back then. So,
but I thought about that. I have talked about that too. I wish I would have took pictures with everybody I ever did anything with. But do you believe that it would have been a hard sell to get pictures took with every one of the guys back then? When you think they say, hey, this guy's going to go out here and sell this picture with me?
Well, yeah, and then they'd say, they'd look at us as being marks, hey, well,
Yeah, I was. That's the reason I didn't do it. But I go back today, and I love to have pictures with a lot of them. I met Muhammad Ali and never got a picture with him in New Orleans, and I wish that I would have done that. But hey,
I was with Andre several times and didn't. He got in my Volkswagen one night. That's a story.
that needed pictures.
Well, I'll tell you real quick. You remember when he was in Knoxville and it was a handicap match, him and Roy Lee against Ronnie Garvin, and and I was there, and just briefly, but I met him somewhere else along the way. Well, he came into Shreveport when I was there, and when he came to town, it was like the circus came to town. The prices went up. Everybody knew you were going to make money because Andre was in town. And so he knocked on my door one night about 11 o'clock. I knew he was coming in, and I said, I looked through the hole in the door, and all I saw was a button on a shirt. I went, oh my gosh. So I opened the door, and he went, hey, Paul, you got a car? And I said, yeah, but it's a Volkswagen. I don't think you can get in it. I'll get in it. Get your clothes on, So he wanted to go to the racetrack there in Shreveport, a little hole in the wall dive bar, and we started in, and the guy stopped me. Andre was over, he'd been drinking and was over in the parking lot. I guess he was taking a leak or whatever. But anyway, the guy stopped me going in the door, and he said it's $5 coverage, and I said, well, that's okay. I'm just going to look, because Andre wanted to go, and he wouldn't go in if he didn't have a place to sit in the corner where he could watch everybody. He didn't want to be bothered, and so he said, see if I got a seat. I said, okay. So I go in, look around, and the owner comes over, and the guy says, we charge you? He said, well, they're wrestling in town. He said, it's okay. No problem. So he started back out the door, and he says, it's going to be a $5 cover. I said, it's okay. So I told Andre, I said, come on, we got to see. We start in, and he says, it's $5 coverage. And I said, well, that's okay. I said, Andre, it's $5. And he went, yeah, it's $5. And then looked straight up, and he said, y'all just come on in. Andre walked in, hit his head on the chandelier, and got color.
Oh, man.
We walked in, yeah. But, yeah, he just expected you to drink one every time he did, and that just wasn't going to happen. So,
yeah, Andre had to get in a Firebird one time with us. We picked him up on a Saturday morning for television in a Firebird. He had to get in that thing. He had to look at that thinking, man. Charlie McGowan used to go and pick up those people, but for some reason I think he got his finger cut off. And so he wasn't able to do that. So Dad had to go pick him up, and man, he got slammed down in that Firebird.
I'm telling you, I had the seat all the way back. I had a sunroof, so half his head was hanging out of the sunroof when he had the afro, and it was like this in the wind, And I'm over by the door, trying to change gears, and I mean, yeah, it was, yeah.
Let's see if you could took pictures of that. That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Jack, go ahead and ask your questions you've got for him. And
all right, let me scroll down here to where I'm at. You would start wrestling for Ric Flair and Blackjack Mulligan, and I'm gonna bring up a few matches that you had with those guys, and just give me some memories that you have of that. First one was from, I believe, April of '81, Super Destroyer #2 and #1, Steve Travis and Don Kernodle defeated you and Kenny Hall.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that one?
I remember doing that. We first went down when they started, and wanted some TV guys. Of course, I think Rick was part of that. Getting us booked, and then that's where I met Arn Anderson the first time there. He'd come up from Georgia to do some TV, and I met Barry Windham, Blackjack's son, of course. And Barry and I just hit it off and so whatever they wanted me to do, I did, and I was trying to get my foot in the door somewhere. And Jack asked me about the 6th or 7th TV if I'd ever thought about doing it full time, and I said that's all I've ever thought about, because I was working and then tried to college. I knew I wasn't going to go, but he asked me, and I said I have a job, but I said I'd like to do it full time, because I'd been telling him at the job for a couple of years that I was going to do it. I'd jump off the table on a box of cotton and stuff, and they thought I was an idiot and crazy. And I said, I'm going to do it, and they said, nah, you'll be here when the doors close, Well, he gave me that chance, and I went in and told him I'm done. I told Jack I wanted to give a 2-week notice. He said, you're a businessman. He said, I can appreciate that. So, but then I hit the road running and didn't look back, because when they finally closed down, he got me over in Charlotte, and then from Charlotte went to Watts. So that's how that all evolved.
Good deal. Also in April '81, you wrestled Les Thornton. You remember working with Les?
I do. I was tied in knots. I just did what he wanted me to. That's about the way it was. But as I said, I got to work with him later in Atlanta, and did 8 1-hour Marcus of Queensbury rules matches with him up north when they started going on tour up in Ohio everywhere. So
Okay, and then also April of '81, y'all were in Harrisonburg High School in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Tim Horner versus Tony Anthony ended without a winner in a time limit draw.
yeah, I remember that. And I'm going to tell you a story about that. We had our match, and then I think maybe the main event was Blackjack and the Iron Sheik. And so I think Steamboat was on the card. A lot of guys was on the card, but we were out first or second match. And Jack says, Timmy, I need you to stay dressed. You got to run in on this last match. And I said, really? I mean, that's a big deal. You're going to run in on the main event, So I kept waiting, and I was going back, and I think I oiled up 2 or 3 times, did push-ups. You want to look good running in out there, and I kept asking Jack. I said, "What do you want me to do?" He said, "Well, I'll tell you before we get there." I kept asking him. Well, the bell rang, and Iron Sheik went in the ring, and Jack started out, and I said, "Jack, what do you want me to do?" And he said, "Look," he said, "me and the Sheik are going out there," and he said, "We'll have our match and we'll get out and we'll both get outside. It'll be a double count out." And he said, "As soon as you hear the double count out, I want you to hit the ring and help them tear it down because it's 400 miles back to Knoxville." And my heart just sank. I mean, I was blowed up from doing push-ups and stuff. And he said, "Help them tear it down because it's 400 miles back to Knoxville." That's one of the ribs I remember more than any.
Oh man, that's a good one.
Oh, Lord. Okay. July '81, Freedom's Hall Civic Center in Johnson City, Tennessee. Rick Connors versus Tim Horner. It was a Tennessee brass knuckles match, but we don't know who the winner was of that match was.
I don't remember it. I remember it because it was real. We did the same match in Knoxville. I remember the Knoxville match. They talk about Ron Wright's cutter. Y'all remember the cutter,
Yeah.
the razor blade welded on the nut. Well, that was going to be the finish, and I said, who's got the nuts? That's what I wanted to know. So the deal was, Rick gets me in the corner, and he hits me with the nuts, and I get. This is in the brass knucks, and it was really good. I guess watching it was really good because I had wrapped toilet paper around my hands and then tape my hands up. Well, in the middle of the match, every time I throw a punch, it would be like feathers flying, and it was just an accent to the match that actually was good. But Rick backed me in, and he said, "Okay, here we go," and so he swings with that cutter, and it got the side of my head, and it just skinned it. I mean, there was no blood. You know how you just skin it, and it's just real pink, and there was no blood. And he said, "I'm gonna have to hit you with it again." And I said, "Don't hit me with that thing again." And so that was like telling him, But anyway, so he did, and then of course got the color and all. So the second part of that was, we go to the corner and I block it and then hit the turnbuckle. He drops it. I get it and nail him, So that's what happened. I hit him hard as I could, I think, right in the middle of the forehead. I didn't see any blood at that point. And I pulled him up. He said, "Don't hit me again." I said, you got another one coming. I hit him again, and I swear it was in the same spot. I mean, you couldn't tell that I did it twice, but we was a bunch of dogs when it was over with. So
was that at Alley Park? Was that where that was at?
Side Park, yeah. Big house too.
All right, July of '81, Pulaski, Virginia. Mongolian Stomper and Luke Graham versus Terry Taylor and Tim Horner. We don't have a winner for that one either.
Yeah, I don't. They probably caught it on me. I don't know. It was just two young baby faces out there trying to stay alive.
Okay, well, here's where you're getting better because August of '81, Morristown, Tennessee, Terry Taylor and Tim Horner defeated John Studd and Kevin Sullivan.
Ooh, hometown. Had a little hometown cooking that night.
Yeah. And then October of '81, Knoxville, Tennessee, Tim Horner defeated Ted Allen.
Yeah. Well, I miss old Ted. Oh, boy, man.
We all do. Ted was really good to everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
It was good. I remember the last show they ran was in Morristown when they shut down, and I worked with Ray Candy. Y'all remember Ray?
Yes,
I do.
I'll tell you a story. Jack told Ray, he said, hey, it's a kid's hometown. Do what you want to. And Ray said, "Well, just call it in the ring." Okay, so we're working there in Morristown, and he's telling this the lady who made all my jackets back to shut up, that he might be her grandson. Lord, that just tore everybody up. And so I kept trying to ask Ray what was doing, and he had me in a bear hug. He said, "Timmy, I want you to slap my ears, shoot me off." I say, slap my ears and hit the ring, duck the clothesline, and I'll catch you in a bear hug again. I said, okay. So we did that, and I went up for a bear hug, and he fell straight back. The referee counted 1, 2, 3. And I said, "What happened?" He said, "You beat me. Now get off of me." He put me over in my hometown and didn't even tell me, because I didn't know what he was going to do. I jumped up for the bear hug again. He fell straight back, and referee counted. It was pretty good.
Ray Candy was a nice guy.
Yeah,
he was a nice man. He really was. Let's get some more questions. We've got some more that came in. Jared. Did anybody know how to pronounce that last name?
No. Hey, Jared.
Jared, how you doing, Jared? Tim, can I ask you if you were close with Magnum TA and Dusty Rhodes? If so, what funny or heartwarming story can you share of both of these guys?
I met Magnum, of course, working for Watts back in the day. I don't know that we were close. You learn the guys that you're working with in the territory, and then you go somewhere else, and you just meet new guys and all that. But we did hook up again in Charlotte. Dusty was booking, and I worked for Dusty, and had some good times with him. I don't know. I guess I've talked to Magnum more of the last 2 or 3 years than I did then. He was main event material, and I was still working my way up underneath that. It was funny territory over there when I first went in there. The bottom guys didn't ride with the top guys. It was just kind of funny. I don't know why that was, but till the Briscoes got there, and then the Briscoes wouldn't ride with anybody but the bottom guys. So, and they were fun. I'm telling you, Jack and Jerry were good guys. We made a lot of road trips in that. But yeah, I don't recall anything really standing out other than just normal, being around the guys kind of thing. So.
Everett Moore asked, he says, how are you, brother? I won't use what he said. Everett Moore. Do you know Everett Moore?
I'm looking at his picture. Yep. I remember.
Stephanie Wood said, "Yes, I do." I don't know what she was asking. Yes, I do. Tim needs to come to Fan Fest. I don't know if you've ever been there in Dothan, Alabama, November 22nd. They're doing a Continental Wrestling Fan Fest that weekend.
Well, I've tried for a couple of years, and it just never worked out. They call and then they didn't call back, and so, and I never figured out who was doing it or who wasn't, and so. But yeah, I'd love to.
Chad Marsh asked, "Was there anyone you didn't like to wrestle?"
No, not really. I took everybody as a challenge. If they couldn't work, it was a challenge to me to make them look as good as they could. There were some guys that didn't want to work per se. Maybe didn't want to put your stuff over after you did theirs, and so sometimes you had to persuade them a little bit. Having a wrestling background always helps, so, there's been a few guys that I've kind of, as the old guys, Jack used to say, that hook them. So, but I tell people one of them that I got to wrestle Harley Race when he was champion, and they said, and this was in '81. We went to Canada, first time I'd ever been out of the country, and I worked with Harley on TV up there. And he let me do just enough to, he didn't know me. So, they fill you out and, but he let me do a lot of more than I thought I'd get, So that was pretty special to be able to say I wrestled Harley Race when he was champion, even though it was TV.
Now, also in 1981, you went to Tampa and you worked against David Von Erich. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I knocked the whiz out of him.
All right, you got to tell this story.
Well, again, I was down there. I got caught in the Booker switch. I went down out of the Charlotte territory, and actually the Briscoes got me booked down there. But 2 weeks after I'd gotten there, J.J. Dillon took over the book, and he had his own crew. You know how they used to do. Everybody had their own crew coming in. So I was only there for a short time, but Dory Funk was kind of managing David, and yeah, I took a beating. But if you ever get a chance to see that match when I was draped over the ropes, and I mean I pickled him. I know I pickled him. I dropped him like a hot rock, and Dory, when I come back, Dory said, "You laid that one in there, didn't you, kid?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "No, it was good. It woke David up. But it was another one of those. I was there to put somebody over, but it was good.
Yeah, I think I have seen that match on YouTube. I believe that's available on YouTube if anybody wants to watch it.
Yeah.
Let's see, Jack. What does can you read that? For some reason, I've
Jay Cooper. Hey, Jay. Jay's an old friend of mine. Was there ever anyone you wished you had been able to work that you were never given a chance to work with?
That's probably a good question. Up until Mark Curtis, who passed away, had a show up in Pittsburgh, and I had always wanted to wrestle Dean Malenko. Never had gotten that opportunity, and he made it a 6-man. Me, Tracy Smothers, and I think it's Chris Candido against Shane Douglas and Malenko and Benoit. And I'm telling you, it was all I thought it'd be. So it was good.
Let's see. Mark Schwartz said he loves the stories. Jarrett, well, he is, Jared again. We'll just call you Jared. Tim, who is your favorite wrestler now, if you're still watching?
Depends on what I'm watching. I really don't follow it a lot. Every now and then I'll look on just to see who's there. You know, I don't know that there's anybody out there right now that, you know, number one, they don't work like we used to work. And I don't know that they could, I don't know if I could have a match. Well, I'm not saying that, I guess, but I don't know of anybody out there that I would.
I think you could have had a good match with Daniel Bryant. I believe
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah, that would have been that's a good call there. Good call out there.
Yeah, he would have been really good because Daniel Bryant and you could have had a great matches. Jay Smith has given us a bunch of laughing faces. Thank you so much for being on. Let's see. Jack, you got any questions for him while I'm looking through the comments here?
Well, a poke of your memory. I can't remember. It's mid 90s, I think it was. Scotty Riggs and Glenn Gilbernetti, Disco Inferno, tagged against a couple of guys there, Tim Horner and Jack Lord.
Yeah.
That's been a while. And I don't look anything like I did back then either. So, but I just remember getting in there and when you were in the ring, I was thinking, my God, he's so much better than I am.
Oh, you're too kind.
Well, you know, I always wanted to learn from everybody I was in there with. And that was one of those opportunities, man, that I was always grateful for.
Alan Crawford said, hello, Jack. Thanks for turning me on to this broadcast. I love hearing the stories and history.
Alan and I grew up together. Great guy. He's a pastor now, so we don't have to worry about dinging what he puts on there.
Lane wants to know, how did Hawk feel about putting you over?
Well, I'll tell you the story. When I was in working the Charlotte territory, and Ivan Koloff wanted to do a program with me, and so he tried to get the office to do it, and they went with gosh, having seen your moment. The football player out of Ontario, Canada, that was his kid.
I'm trying to think of his name.
Yeah. Anyway, his kid came in, and so he had a little stroke. So they give his kid the opportunity versus me. So Jake called me and asked me if I wanted to come down. I got a spot for you, and I said okay. So I go to Atlanta, and he says he and Ole are sitting there, and he says, you're going to beat Hawk today. And I said, does he know that? So that was my first impression. So Hawk was on board with it. I talked to Hawk. Animal didn't want to do it. He said he was too small. And you got to take it for what it was back then. They were still green in the business. All they knew was beating people up, and that's what they were doing. And so Hawk said, hey, he's been in the business longer than we have. You know, they say we're going to get heat off of this. So, you know, well, right before we go to the match on TV, Animal comes up to me and he says, once that bell rings, I'm hitting the ring. And if you're still in it, I'm taking your effing head off. And
Whoa.
I said, you don't have to worry about that. Oh, and if you watch the match, when he stood up in the ring, I was outside with my hand raised. So, but we had the match, and I love Hawk. I love both of them. But Hawk and I became real good friends after that. And I tried to explain to him the heat. And then when we went on tour with it, you know, they would just beat us. I'd had different partners at the time. I remember in Cleveland, they handcuffed King Kong Bundy to the ropes and was beating the snot out of me, you know, and then people were throwing towels in the ring and everything. And then on the way back, it was 8 bikers that jumped the Road Warriors on the way back, and they laid them out like cordwood. I'm telling you. And so when we get to the back, Hawk says, hey, Horner, is that the heat you was talking about? I said, that's it. He said, I like it. I like it.
That was Angelo Mosca Jr.
absolutely. That's it.
Jack, if you don't mind reading this next thing. For some reason I'm getting blurry.
Johnny Rose, hello from England, gentlemen. I'm a huge Tim Horner fan. I link him versus Kurt Hennig of WWE TV. Boston Gardens was a wrestling perfection.
Thank you, Johnny. It was a pleasure working with Mr. Perfect. I mean, he was just a phenomenal hand, and it was just one of those fits like a glove matches. Everything was good, and it's just one of those times when everything just clicked. And Kurt was a great person, a great hand. Yeah, it was amazing working with him. So.
Donna Renesto, how you doing? Please tell Tom Renesto Jr. we said hello. Bill Harris wants to know, do you remember Billy? I think that's Billy Starr.
Oh, yeah, sure do.
Yeah.
That's
who Bill Harris is, Billy Starr.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mike Schaefer said that Dennis Gale is the promoter for FanFest in Dothan. Yes. Lane wants to know, how was it to work with the sheep herders?
Oh, it was fun. Johnny Ace was their manager when we were doing that, which was John Laurinaitis, which is Animal's brother, and who still works with the WWE as a producer. Those guys were great. Anytime you don't have somebody from the United States and you're the baby faces, the matches are easy. For them being heels, and they were a little unorthodox at some of the stuff they did, but they still did what we did. They would put over what our stuff was and get their stuff in too. But yeah, they were great guys to work with.
Tammy Elkins Taylor asked, what was your favorite Brad Armstrong story? And hello, Tammy. Thank you so much for being part of our episode tonight.
I don't know that they were all good. They were all favorites, all Brad. But I do recall one. He and Hector Guerrero and myself traveled a lot at one point, and we've always been the three amigos. We made a pack, and to this day, when I talk to Hector, it's always three amigos for life. But Hector had wanted to go to a drugstore, and we pulled in a parking lot, and Brad was just flipping through the radio. This has got. I mean, it may sound stupid, y'all, but one of them things you had to be there. And when he flipped the station, it went to an opera station for whatever, and whoever was singing was just going, it was just a long. And I looked at Brad, and he went, "Oklahoma, where the wind comes shifting down the." I mean, it was just one of those Brad moments,
He could make you feel so good. Brad was so great. I mean, you could be down and out, and Brad would bring you right back. He'd bring you right back up there.
And I think Jack said it last night. You could be in the dressing room and it'd be down, and Brad walk in, and it's like the light came on.
Yeah, he was in trouble. Now there have been a couple of questions coming in, and I was going to not ask you this question. And if you don't want to answer it, you can just say, I don't want to talk about this guy. And you probably know the guy's name I'm going to bring up. Jim Cornette. People have asked, and a couple of people here, and I've not done it. What is your thoughts about Jim Cornette?
I have no thoughts about him.
There you go. So there's the thought process about Jim Cornette.
Tim knows how he is, and he said a lot of things that weren't true. Maybe they'll come out in the book. But it is what it is. Everywhere he's been, it's been somebody else's fault. So, it is what it is. It's like a pile of cow manure. It don't stink unless you stir it up. So.
Well, I had to ask because people ask a couple of times. I'm going past them. Listen, I will tell you this. I met Tim Horner in 1985. I have had nothing but great experiences with Tim Horner. My dad only had great experiences with Tim Horner. And to me, he has been a great person. He's a great person. He's a great wrestler, and that's all that needs to be said about that. Because and I can't say the same about Jim Cornette. And we'll leave it at that. Do we have anything else? Everybody else? I think we've got everybody questions in. Tim, do you have anything you want to tell the people about before we go off of here?
Well, we want to stretch a little bit farther in 80, 89, after the 87 run, which we had in the UWF, and we went back to Charlotte and all. Brad and I, a lot of people didn't know this. Brad and I were contacted by WWF at the time. Axe and Smash, Bill Eadie and Barry Darsow were there, and they were looking for a babyface team. Wanted to, and we had just beat Sting and Steiner in 87, and had some good momentum going on. And Brad didn't want to go. And at that point, Brad liked the South. We all know that. He was in his element, and didn't want to travel. So, but I went up anyway. Without a spot, just went up to there in 89. But you look back, if we had a went, would there have been rockers? Because they brought the rockers in because we didn't go, and a lot of people don't know that. But that was an opportunity that was up on the table, but we just he didn't want to go, and it wasn't a good fit, and so we didn't. But they did, and rest is history. So,
yeah,
that would have been good for them, because I think
for what now? He froze up.
I think Brent's froze up on us just a little bit. It happens every now and then. He got that new router, and but I think his internet connection's freezing up on him. But you got anything else you want to touch on before we close?
No, I enjoy this. Reminiscing's always good. I go back through some pictures that I do have, and I go to places sometimes with these legend shows and conventions, and people hand you pictures and stuff from the past, and you just sit and reminisce, and you wonder what ifs, but it's just good to reminisce and laugh and cut up about the business.
Yeah, I'm to the point now where I enjoy the reunions more than I do ever actually going to shows anymore. And I still book shows, but right. I like talking about the old days better than I like doing anything with the new days.
Right. Sorry, I got thrown off for a minute. I guess I think I made a mistake. We were telling. I made a comment about somebody, and they threw me off.
Certainly not.
Well, Tim, thank you so much. We'd love for you to come back on, because we want to pick up after you leave Florida, and pick up and talk a little bit more about your career later on, if you don't mind coming back on.
Not at all. I enjoy it.
Well, we appreciate it. We thank everybody for your questions. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and it'll tell you when we're actually going to be uploading a video. And if you're watching on Facebook, like and share this video, and let everyone know that we're talking about the old days of professional wrestling, the good old days of professional wrestling. And Jack, thank you so much. Tim Horner, thank you so much. And thank you. And we'll see you on the next episode of Pro Wrestling Inside and Out Live.